Right. One of the main tips in studying this unit in the health and social communication sector is that this particular sector is quite intensive in terms of dealing with people. You will have a lot of stakeholders that you work with within the health and social care environment, and these stakeholders you have to have different types of communications with. The communications could be formal, informal. You have communications which are written and verbal, and the whole idea of studying this particular unit is to give you insight into how and what are the far-reaching effects of communication when you're dealing in particular with patients, when you're dealing in particular with your patients' relatives, you're also dealing with colleagues which are working within the same environment, and you're also dealing with a lot of suppliers or people who work within that sector but do not work primarily on the front line. Now, the whole idea of studying the communication unit is to basically refresh some of the key nuances of communication, whether it's speech, verbal, body language, formal, informal, and these communication techniques you have to basically study it from a context of the health and social care management or the health and social care environment. Now, the first learning outcome in this particular unit is understand how internal communication takes place within health and social care organizations. So what we're going to do is, when we go down slightly and look at the indicative content of this particular unit in learning outcome one in particular, what we want to be able to understand is the process of communication. What does it involve? What are the types of communications that we can do? And then when are the situations in which these type of communications are most appropriate? So that is what we're going to look at today as the medium of the PowerPoint presentation. And I will take you through a few set of slides. A copy of this presentation is already available, on the learner management system, and it says here, as you can see on the screen. So you can download and obviously go through the presentation during at a later stage as well. But what I'm going to do is just go along and obviously take you through some of the key aspects of the communication, models in particular. So if I go on to the first slide, I'll discuss the communication models in particular. I'll discuss the type of communications we do, how communications can be effective, and towards the end, we will also look at a particular case study or a situation in which you are going to be, I'm going to be simulating and give you an example of how communication is to be handled in that particular context. Is that okay so far?
Yep.
Okay, good stuff. Now, in communication, there are different models that we need to study. So one of the communication model is the model wherein this is also a process, and the process it involves four key components. There is a sender. So we are having a communication right now, but we are having it through the internet medium. I am primarily in that process of sender. You at your end are a receiver, and what you see on the screen is the message. Now, from time to time, in order for this whole process to complete, I also use a bit of feedback to understand that I'm not running through the presentation, too quickly, and whatever I'm transmitting as a sender is actually being received at your end, and you're able to correlate the message that you see on the screen and understand it from an aspect of what is being interpreted and what is being said. Is that okay?
Yes.
So business communication model is a representation of a process, and it is a process which involves four elements: the sender, the message, and the receiver. And in between, when the communication is happening, there's a bit of a feedback which is moved from the sender to the receiver and from the receiver to the sender. And this primarily completes the loop of the process of communication. Now, when we look at the models of communication, let's look at briefly some aspects of the definition and a few other elements which are involved in this particular process. First process is, obviously, whenever you look at situations in which you do communication, sometimes your communication is practical and visual in nature. Now, the reason why I say this is that when we speak, we articulate words and we also use gestures or body language to communicate our, process or communicate the meaning of what we are trying to, speak to the person about. And that is described as something called the nature. Media is nothing but what we use in the process of communicating our message to the other person, to the other side. So in my case, I'm using a media which is a PowerPoint presentation, just as an example. The other person's ability to be able to understand what I've said and understand in the same context what I've understood as I have communicated is basically the ability of understanding which is required. So if I start talking in Parlez-vous français, je m'appelle Raman Singh. So you won't be able to understand the context is because I'm talking in French, but you are understanding in English. So our ability to be able to understand is also important and is an integral part of the communication model. There are a few set of requirements which every time when we communicate have to happen, and that's how the process that gets completed. And in some cases, we do find that the communication process becomes quite complex. Now, if I have to, just to give an example here, if I write 1 plus 1 equal to, now you understand the complexity is that this is, I'm trying to talk to you in mathematical language,
Yes.
isn't it? But if I say something like, in English, which you are able to understand, then we are in the same. We are trying to communicate to each other at the same on the same plane or on the same platform. Time is of the relevance because there is always time requirement in terms of whether you're looking at a meeting, whether you're looking at writing something, or you're writing a letter. There is always an element of time in the communication that you do. Sometimes you must have seen that people ask you a question, but because you have not replied at that instant by taking a certain amount of time, the teacher will normally pass the question on to somebody else, give somebody else an opportunity to be able to answer that question. So time is also an important element within the communication model. And the communication process is only completed when the presenter has spoken and the receiver on the other side has understood in the same instant the meaning of that communication and has not interpreted that at a different with a different meaning, that basically constitutes the element of effectiveness. So if I say 1 plus 1 is 2, you understand 1 plus 1 is 2. That means my communication is not effective of how I'm making 1 plus 1 equal to 3 rather than 2. Is that okay?
With time, when it says less time is required to prepare a communication model, I don't really understand that.
You don't really understand the communication model.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So let me just back.
What do you mean? Do you mean like you could understand it better through the communication model?
Yes. See, the medium of when we talk, we are basically talking because we have another person on the other side who's able to converse with us and understand the meaning of the conversation that we are having. And because of this, what tends to happen is if we break this down, the talk that we are doing, there are some elements to this particular process which is happening. And that process is nothing but the communication model. So if I speak and you on the other side are able to receive my speech and also interpret and understand, that completes the process of communication. And for simplicity, this is divided into the elements of, somebody who's speaking is the sender of the message, somebody who's receiving you're listening through your ears, and when you're listening to that speech that or the talk that I'm doing, you're able to understand the message, and that then completes the process in terms of communication. So there are different elements to it. There's the sender, there's the receiver, and when you ask me a question, that is the feedback. You're asking me something about which is not clear, and that becomes the feedback from the receiver to the sender.
Yeah, I understand that part, but when it comes to time, in terms
Yeah.
of time,
Well, in terms of time is the communication
Charging completed.
always happens in a context wherein it is relative to time. Now, the example here would be, which I quoted earlier, is imagine you're in a class and the teacher is asking an open question. So a lot of students raise their hand, and one of the students is given the opportunity then to answer that question. But
yeah,
if he or she takes a bit of time, then the teacher will actually give somebody else an opportunity to answer that question. So time is, is an important element within the process of communication, is because if sometimes people ask you a question and you don't reply, they can infer that you're being rude because you have not answered them, or you kind of totally ignored them. So these expressions of interest, things like you're ignoring me, is because I've asked you a question and you're not replying, is the element of time.
yeah, I understand now.
You understand that now?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, good stuff. Now, in terms of the, what we want to be able to do is the reasons of, as I mentioned to you earlier, the reason of studying communication in health and social context is we want to be able to understand when and what type of communication you need to do with clients and in a particular situation. Now, in order to understand that, what we will look at is primarily two models of communication, and these have been, developed by some of these authors which are mentioned here over a period of time, and they are now industry standards and accepted. So, one of the first models that we will look at is the Aristotle's model, and in this model, if you look at the image here, which is this image here, gives you an idea that this model consists and focuses on primarily the speaker and what the speaker is actually speaking about. And every model that you see will have some elements. So the elements here primarily are basically the speaker, the speech, the audience to which the speaker is speaking to, and what kind of an effect does it have on the audience. Now, in most of the communication models, you have to assume that there are certain elements which look at giving more importance. A good example of this that I would like to give is, if you look at the presidential debates which are happening in the United States, there was one, and the last one which was broadcasted live yesterday. And when you look at that presidential debate, you saw, if I don't know whether you watched it or not, but if you saw that debate, what you would see is that the speaker, Hillary and Donald Trump, primarily a speaker, was speaking to some of the questions being raised by the presenter. And the role of the audience in the background, in the dark when it's shown sometimes with the camera focus, the role of the audience was primarily passive. They were not interacting with these presenters. Now, that is a good example. Then the Aristotle's
I can't hear you
life.
properly.
You can't hear me properly.
When you talk too fast, it doesn't capture your voice. When you talk slow, it kind of captures your voice.
I think there is a bit of a feedback which is coming in because I can hear a bit of an echo today.
Okay. Because when I put it down, I can't hear anything then.
So that's fine. I'll just keep your volume maybe slightly up. And I'm going to try and obviously send you the recording of this after the presentation is over as well.
Okay, thank you.
So here this particular model actually puts focus on the speaker itself, and the audience in particular has a passive role. And an example of this would be typically when you see in health and social care context, if the doctor is actually speaking to the patient and he or she has a prognosis, then the patient is always listening. And if they've done a few tests on the patient, then obviously the doctor is giving a bit of a prognosis, and maybe the family members and the patient is actually listening to what the doctor has to say. And after a point in time, the patient will actually kind of understand the situation and then react or maybe not choose to react to that situation. So this particular model is primarily seen in situations wherein there is public speaking. For example, it could be a seminar that you go to, it could be an event that you attend, and this particular model puts focus on primarily the speaker or the presenter who's making the speech. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly flip to the second model. Now, the second model is called the last one model, and in this model, the process of communication is primarily to make sure that the message is understood by a broad variety of people. A typical example of this particular model will be when you look at going to an event or very soon, for example, a gig, and you're having to go across to that particular event. The presenter on one side will try and address a multicultural audience, and the presenter then tries to make a connection with all the audiences present in that particular venue. So again, this particular model has 5 components, and what you'll normally get to see is in every model, there's always an originator or a communicator from which the message originates, and then it goes to a particular receiver, that means the audience or the target population, and then that message will have some sort of a cause and effect. And that cause and effect could be a positive effect, it could be a negative effect, but obviously the message communicated has some sort of an effect on the receiver. So this is another model that you have to look at, and obviously this kind of a model in the health and social care context is used by doctors, and they use it very, very carefully. Now imagine a situation in which you have to break the news, and or provide a particular news item to the patient, or within that context, say, to the relatives. What you try and do is you try and put your words very carefully, and the idea of why you put these words very carefully is the moment you give out that news in the form of a message, that will have an effect on the receiver, or on the relative in this case, or the patient itself in this case. So you have to use these models from a context of relativity when you try and apply them within the health and social care context. Let's look at another model. This is another model in which is called the SCARA model, and this is another model in which what happens is, this is like, for example, you're watching a television. One example of this is that you're watching a television, and assuming on the television news coverage, you are sitting in the same place as which the news is running on the TV channel. It does not have any effect on you until you get to a point wherein the news actually makes sense to you. So I'll give you an example here. For example, if the TV is on and the news of a particular incident which catches your attention, but in the background the channel was running for quite a number of minutes, but suddenly one of the breaking news items actually catches your attention. So in this kind of a communication, what tends to happen is there is a lot of clutter, and you, on a purposeful basis, choose to interpret or kind of digest a particular news item because that is of interest to you and that is of importance to you. So if you look at sometimes, and the casual example would be a group of friends are having a bit of a conversation and you are standing amongst your friends, but you tend to nod in that conversation, you're nodding your head in that conversation, you're not paying attention, and I can kind of feel that you're not paying attention. But the moment the conversation is takes a turn, wherein it becomes interesting, and it becomes interesting in the sense that you are wanting to contribute to that communication or that process of discussion, you suddenly get involved. And then because you put some of the viewpoints forward, then it becomes interesting for you and you get involved in that particular process. So that kind of a model in which you only pay attention to the type of message or the communication when it is of importance to you and you get involved is the model wherein probably you will put this in that context. Again, there are a few elements that you can things like the source from where information is coming from. If you are looking at the television news channel, the news source of the TV is the source here. The encoder is where the news is actually originating, which is the TV station. The signal is less nothing but being broadcasted to Sky or Virgin or whatever it is. Your equipment at home is able to decode that, and the destination is that the news is being broadcasted on your television screen, which you are able to understand. So this could be an example of the elements within the whole process of communication, and where in what context the model can be used would be an example of a group of friends having a conversation, but you get involved when an interesting comes across, or you are able to contribute to that topic. Is that okay?
I don't understand how why they go in the opposite ways, the arrows, and the other model.
But
The arrows are both facing towards the signal.
yes, that's a good question. Now, the reason why this is the case is because when you look at the whole model of communication, it is the receiver is a passive person. That means you are not creating that particular content, and the source from which it is being broadcasted. A good example is the TV channel. So you have to visualize it. That if you look at the TV channel, that is the source from which the news is originating. And at your home, you are watching it on the TV, is actually being broadcasted to a signal. So for you, if I have to break the elements down, and you understand and you have a screen in front of you, you have to visualize that, okay, I can see everything on the TV screen, but the source from which it is coming, the message which is being encoded and broadcasted, the destination, is all merged into one, which is your television screen. You're not able to see all these layers in terms of the communication package. So that's why everything is converging onto the signal which is coming across in terms of the process of communication from your television channel. Okay.
Yep.
You have to visualize. I think it's a bit of an abstract topic, but I think the visualization is the example of the television channel.
Yeah.
If you have a conversation and I'm having a conversation with you and you're standing in front of me, then obviously we have different forms of interaction possible. There is body language being used. I'm using the gestures like my mouth. You see the facial movements of my lips and the eyes. And because we are standing in front of each other and having a conversation, so there is a reaction and there's an action and there's a reaction. But in this particular case, everything is being merged into a string, so the layers are converging where the signal or the communication is actually originating from.
Yep.
Okay, brilliant. Let's go across to the next model, which is called the Riley's model of communication. This particular model, as the definition itself says, emerges as a part of a larger pattern. That means somebody who's sending the message is sending it in accordance with the expectations and actions of other person or group within the same social structure.
Can you repeat that again, please? The line was really bad. I couldn't hear that.
Right. Are you able to see the screen?
I'm able to see the screen.
Right. So what I've said is I've just read out the sorry, I just read out the first line which is on the screen,
Yep.
which is the model. This particular model actually comes into place wherein there are larger groups of audiences interacting with each other. So
Okay.
as against an individual, you'll have a group of people interacting with each other, but they are also part of a particular group. Now,
Yep.
a good example of this will be if you visualize yourself within a meeting room and or maybe in a classroom, and the
Yep.
teacher then gives out a group activity and separates you into different groups and then asks you to look at working on that. So what will happen is there'll be group A and there'll be a group B, and these groups then will do their discussions, and when they have their discussions and they're asked to present, there'll be a number of conversations which will happen between the group of students. So here, sometimes if I look at it this way, that I have myself, I have one of the other tutors, and we are discussing amongst ourselves, we are in the same group. While on the other hand, we have two students who are discussing things amongst themselves. Now, when we start talking to each other, it's not one person talking to each other, it is a group of persons talking from both sides. So this particular model is a model wherein the communicators and the receivers are more than one person, and they are working in groups. Is that okay?
Yep.
I think one of the other last models that we are looking at is the Bernoulli's model, in which we, again the model is the same, but the difference here is that we look at the emotional aspect of the message. That means specifically in the health and social care context, if I have to break a news to the relatives of the patient for something which is quite detrimental to the patient, then I have to have a bit of empathy, and that message then becomes a bit emotional. Say suddenly somebody has been diagnosed with, say, a fatal disease, and you have to break that message to the relatives so that they understand the severity of that condition, but also you have to have a bit of empathy and emotional aspect to your message.
Hello? Hello? Hello?